And here we have the disconnect. You see, journalists are supposed to be the missing link between the consumer and the developer. They actually have an important role to play within the gaming industry. And unfortunately, they're also the gatekeepers. If they want to push for something from the developers, then that things happen. Like they would literally have the power to remove loot boxes back in the day if they wanted to. They would have had the power to push for games to be refunded, which is something that Steam did, and game journalists were livid about it. They don't work with the consumer, and that's why there is this disconnect. Resident Evil is coming out, and in my opinion, it's probably going to be one of the best games of the year. Not because the game is going to be good, but there's that not much else is coming out, as far as I know. Maybe God of War or something. But it's definitely like Resident Evil Village is something that's very hyped, and a lot of people are expecting it. And I think it will be at least entertaining, if not great. I personally like Resident Evil 7. I like Resident Evil 2 Remake. I got high hopes for this. Let's not talk about Resident Evil 3 Remake, right? Just drop it. And there's so much things you can talk about this game. I mean, you can talk about how you would like the weapons to feel or be like. You can speculate on the different type of enemies. You can talk about the lore, the story. Most of the fans talk about that weird lady that people want to step on them. Or, you know what I mean, right? Like, that's pretty much what the fans are. But then the journalists come up. And they push this nonsense American fatness as a class type of thing. It really transcends. I mean, look, if you have a friend that's a chubby motherfucker and someone makes fun of them, you got all the right to defend your friend, alright? But this is like just some level of pathology that I genuinely don't understand, as if all the fat people in the world as a class united and elected this journalist to defend the most bizarre thing ever, which is their representation in video games. Like, what on earth are you talking about? What is this crap? And you know what really annoys me about this movement is that most of the people that get upset about it are Americans. Like, I started to notice this as a trend online. You know, most of the people that speak on behalf of chubby people as a class are Americans. Personal experience. I don't have a study, right? I don't have a doctor with a lab coat to tell me that I'm wrong. But you do notice it after a while. And here's the interesting part, okay? Like, if you just talk about the ideology, like you don't pick on any specific person, you still offend these people. Because at this point, it's like the fat religion. This is how I like to call it. It's got nothing to do with protecting individuals. It's literally like the fat religion. Like, here's my counter argument, all right, for the fat religion movement. If you're in America and you want to get fat, like, more power to you. That's perfectly fine. But don't talk about public healthcare then, right? Because right now, and I'm telling you this as a person who finished med school, and you can go to any doctor you choose. Like, just pick any, and see what they tell you. Getting morbidly obese increases the risk of high blood pressure, increases the risk of you getting a stroke, increases the risk of you getting diabetes. Now, if you're in a private healthcare system, not my money, not my problem. You know, you do you. Do whatever you want. But if you're in Europe, where we got public healthcare, this thing is not very much encouraged. It's treated exactly the same like smoking or chronically drinking, right? Because when you get sick, you become the burden for the taxpayer. Like, other people have to pitch in their money in order to bail your ass. And the problem is that the money is finite. So they're literally taking money away from other people that might have more pressing issues that they couldn't avoid. Like, I don't know, leukemia or something. You know, like that's a mentality that we have here in Europe. So, no, like, you wouldn't fat shame a person on the street, as they like to call it. But at the same time, if the government wants to tax sugar, most people are going to agree with that tax. If the government wants to tax sugary drinks or beverages, most people agree with it. If the government gives a discount in order for people to go to the gym, most people agree with it because it's a social responsibility here. All right. So again, nothing to do with shaming people on the street. But at the same time, we do not promote it either. It's not like a religion. All right. If someone decides to get morbidly obese, it's literally the same like someone deciding to become a drinker, a chronic drinker. You know, it's their life there. But it's like, come on, you know, like if you get sick, you know, you're going to rely on the taxpayer, won't you? So why don't you allow the taxpayer to voice their concerns and put another tax on that sugar? That's how we view it in Europe. But we certainly do not, just randomly shame people on the street. And most importantly, we do not give a fuck about what video game developers have to do. Are you insane? Like, are you literally that level of crazy? Like, you look at a video game and it's like, oh yes, this problematic depiction of a video game character is going to influence the world. Oh, luckily, me, the game journalist, Sian Meyer, is going to come here and is going to save the world from... Like, this level of fart sniffing. And by the way, like, the only reason that they do this is because they do not understand video games. They don't like video games. They don't play video games. They hate video games because they're from California. So you got like this person with the most bizarre complaints. One of the characters in the game seems to be a fat merchant. All right. I don't know. I mean, just okay. It's an interesting character, I suppose. But the journalist, oh no, this is a trope. It's a trope. They have seen the fat merchant so many times that it is a trope. I have a feeling that if you had like the strong, empowered woman, like you have in Resident Evil 3 Remake, there's no problem, right? Like, that's not a Hollywood trope. You don't get to see women that are able to BTFO for men that are twice my size and able to hospitalize you with a punch. But she's managing to just keep up by doing gymnastics or some high-level acrobatic skill. That's not a trope. No, that is empowering for some reason. It's like, are you kidding me? By the way, speaking of irrealistic depictions, like I remember when I was growing up as a teenager, I was playing a lot of these video games, and I was very secluded. I didn't go out. But I stood in the house and I played a lot of video games, so I didn't have much experience with the ladies. I didn't have much experience with the guys either. Like, I sit home playing World of Warcraft. That was what I was doing, right? And then when I went to law school, there was this judge, which was a teacher of mine, and she was talking about how she was very scared because a couple of months ago, someone broke into her house. And, she found all her things vandalized, like someone was trying to send a message, and she was terrified because she's a woman, she's living alone. And I'm like, why doesn't she learn karate? And literally everyone laughed, and I just didn't understand why. It's like, just learn karate and be like Tomb Raider and beat the living shit out of it. Like, isn't that realism, right? Isn't that... Apparently it's not, So what ended up happening is, like, when you play video games and you get, like, these... twisted interpretations of reality, I suppose, you end up dealing with real life, and most people tend to believe real life and their lived experiences more than whatever they play in their video games. So no, I don't think like the fat merchant is a problem. And I don't think the journalist thinks that the fat merchant is a problem, but the journalist has no idea what else to write about, and they want to remind the developer about their place, and they want to say something negative about the game in order to piss off people. Because this game has a lot of fans. A lot of people want to see this game. A lot of people want to play this game. And the journalist knows that if he makes an article that insults these people and insults their game, like what they like to play, then he's going to get clicks. And he's going to get people reading this, And not to mention, like, it's such bizarre criticism. He's talking about, oh yes, this is like the stereotype with the fat merchant, and the first thing that you see is that the door opens and you see the belly coming out and it spills out of the door, unflattering, visible beneath the oh-so-small shirt that can only dream of containing half of it. And he then goes on and says that this is like the typical depiction of fat people in video games. Do you play video games? Like, I'm not saying that this depiction doesn't exist, just like the strong woman depiction that I just mentioned earlier. But you have, like, a lot of fat people that are depicted in a different way. Like, you have that fat chick in Borderlands. Like, you have Rufus in Street Fighter. You got that guy in Tekken with the red shirt. I mean, there's different types of fat people. You got that Chinese chicka in Overwatch. I mean, you can make the argument that she's not fat, she just got big tits. That's also a possibility. Cancer may. But like, if you play video games, like, you get different depictions of fat people. Like, what are you talking about? It's not, and the funny thing is that they're complaining. It's like, now you have, like, the character that has, like, fat as an archetype. Oh, wow, thank you. Do you know, like, when you watch trailers and they have the character that has, like, the gay as an archetype? Like, literally, you know nothing about the character except that the developer would come up and say, oh, yeah, this is an LGBT character. who gives a fuck? Like, no one gives a shit. And we all know that when the game ships to China, the character is going to be translated into straight, right? Like, if you're a bigot, if you're a homophobe, just learn Chinese and play the Chinese version. And all of a sudden, all the LGBT-ness gets removed from the Western American games. But the journalists won't talk about that. They won't even raise the issue about it. Because it's like they don't care about representation. They don't care about, oh yeah, we're changing the world or whatever. It's just like getting clicks. And why am I even making this video? Oh yeah, so I can get clicks. That's why I'm making it, you know. But all in all, it's just a little bit of an analysis of what's going on. Let me know what you think though, and I'll see you guys in the comment section.